very difficult to overemphasize how fragile the supply-demand balance is. Any relatively small interruption in supplies, whether it be politically motivated or industrial accidents, can lead to large spikes in oil prices.
I think a prolonged global recession with high prices and a lot of insecurity is going to lead to political instability as well as economic instability. Regimes will fall, crises will erupt, and how that will play itself out, nobody can be sure, but I'm certain that it'll be a very scary, tense period.
As oil becomes more valuable and scarce, I think it's overwhelmingly likely that the oil companies will look for it absolutely anywhere that it can possibly be found. Offshore from California and Florida, in Alaska and the National Wildlife Refuge. In South America, I don't think any place is really off limits, ultimately.
It means eating up pristine areas. It means killing environments. It means moving indigenous peoples. It means destroying the air. It means destroying the water in an earth that is increasingly smaller and smaller and not able to handle this.
Let's suppose that tomorrow somebody discovered a limitless, free source of energy that could completely replace fossil fuels. Would that solve our problem? Well, frankly, I don't think so. For us, right now, it may seem like fossil fuels is the limiting factor for continued industrial growth. But if we solve that problem and continue growing our economy, growing our extraction and use of other resources, we'll just hit upon another one, and probably very soon. I would guess within a matter of years or a decade or two, we'll hit the next wall, whether it's fresh water or topsoil or minerals, phosphates, and so on. It's okay to imagine that, we can, as we get to each one, we can make up for it. The human mind is so, clever that with each one we would be able to find some substitute and just keep growing exponentially forever, to the point where I suppose we would have a human population such that there'd be 50 of us standing on every square foot of space on planet Earth. That's not going to happen. There are natural limits.
Fossil fuel has been the basis of the explosive expansion of the human enterprise, not only population numbers, but all of the material assets that we've accumulated in the course of the Industrial Revolution. And this train is gathering steam. As long as energy continues to be available in excess of the ultimate demand, then the engine just keeps rolling on, and more people are jumping on the bandwagon. So what we're seeing here is one species among millions on a finite planet having found the key, the evolutionary key to continuous expansion as long as that energy holds out. But the problem is, we're using the energy in ways that are undermining everything else. So if we find an equivalent to fossil fuel, if some substitute comes along, if technology is indeed as successful as economists suggest that it may well be, and there's no corresponding change in the values and beliefs and assumptions behind the growth dynamic, then the planet is doomed.
I actually think by the time I finished that maybe I'm hallucinating, but that there is actually an optimistic life after peak oil if everybody quickly understands how unbelievably serious this is and starts behaving in some radically different manners.
Given the situation in which we currently find ourselves, perhaps the four most powerful steps we can take are bringing population into balance with the Earth and other life forms, reducing our energy consumption, supporting local organic foods that use little or no fossil fuels, and making our voices heard to awaken our politicians to these issues.
Population is a very real issue, and it's the interconnection of population growth and fossil fuel consumption or resource energy consumption that we must be addressing. So many people are only looking at the fossil fuel part of it. It turns out when you look carefully at it, you find that the one variable that determines whether population explodes or not is the power of women in a culture. In the Middle East, for example, Saudi Arabia, population explosion going on. It's creating a real crisis for the Saudi society. On the other hand, there are countries, more secular nations in the Middle East that are equally Muslim, but women have relatively equal power in some of those societies. Iran, for example. You're at nearly zero population growth in Iran right now, compared to Saudi Arabia.
If you made sure that there was justice and economic opportunity for people in the poorest countries, people would choose to have fewer children there. And if people were consuming less here and were sharing more of what they had with the rest of the world, you actually do begin to get the outcomes that both address concerns around population as well as environmental sustainability.
One area where I think environmentalists have gone wrong is to try to sell sustainability in terms of the kinds of sacrifices people have to make. They're going to have to give this up and give that up. Nothing sells if people feel they're going to be worse off as a result of doing this. Using off-the-shelf technologies, people could continue to have the equivalent lifestyle in terms of material well-being with 1/4 the energy use.
I think people should take an immediate energy inventory of their lives and see how much energy they're actually using and how much energy they need to use. When my wife and I did this a few years ago, we were amazed to find that we could get by perfectly well on about 1/5 the amount of electricity that the average California household uses.
People think, oh, how could one person possibly make a difference? But in fact, there have been studies that have shown that if everybody in the United States switched one of their lights to fluorescent lights, we would significantly cut down on our energy consumption. So there are choices that individuals can make that will make a difference collectively if enough individuals make those choices.
We do have to make a massive shift in our way of thinking, a paradigmatic change in the beliefs, values, and assumptions underpinning agricultural production. Something like 17%, perhaps a little more now, of the U.S. energy budget is involved in food production, processing, and distribution.